Welcome to Economic Forum, a program where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. These can be issues about mining, industry, education, religion. Many aspects of life have a bearing on the economy, and we discuss them here on Economic Forum. My name is John Masuku. COVID-19 brought about what we now know as the new normal, especially in the world of work, where people began to work from home, and that culture grew in many parts of the world, Zimbabwe included. So today we want to look at this culture of working from home because others seem to have adopted it and continued even long after COVID-19. We want to look at its productivity, we want to look at how it impacts on different economies. So we've invited Evans Kurangwa, who is a corporate governance expert, who is going to be walking us through this issue of working at home and the future of work. Evans, welcome to Economic Forum.
Thank you for having me here, John.
Tell us about this new normal of working from home. How it started. Yes, we know it started during COVID-19, but someone had to think of saying, even if you're out there in your homes, go on with the work. Because at one time, people stopped working, but because it was prolonged, they actually had to start working from home.
It's interesting that surveys actually say that our current job titles actually change every 5 years. But what we saw in post-2019 was a rapid change in terms of how we look at the workplace, how we look at the workforce. As an example, we're used to the traditional scheme where we have a workplace, we have a leader, and we have the work itself. But post-COVID-19, 2019, what we have seen is where the workforce, where the workplace is a workstation, the workstation has evolved to actually not be physical, but it actually can be in your home. And because of that, we've seen a change in culture. We can actually work from home, and we actually have been working from home, something that we never thought of, something that, we never thought possible.
Yes, but it's not all the jobs that can be done from home. Take us through those which were really affected and those which may find it very difficult to continue with this culture of working from home.
There are industries, obviously, that, for example, a mechanic, there is no way that a mechanic can actually go from their workplace. Look, they can operate from their home, but there has to be the contact. The key issue has been to reduce contact. So, but what we find, especially here in our context, we find that food industries make it very difficult for them to operate from home. They've actually got to go to a workstation. But apart from the food industry, we have the SMEs, we have, all your low income, most of your low income jobs per se, they would find it difficult to actually work from home.
Even manufacturing in general.
Manufacturing in general, because when you look at it, we have equipment and, resources that are gathered at a particular site. And in most cases, the sites actually are strategic. You find an industry that makes plastic that's based in Rua for certain advantages. They actually have to be there. So unfortunately, you've got to actually go to where the industry is sited.
Many were not prepared for this working at home, and it's something that had to be devised as people went along, including us in journalism and broadcasting and so forth. Tell us about the preparedness, for the future. Those who really want to make a decision that with regards to our own workplace, we want to have more of work at home. What really has to be looked into in order for that system to be productive?
Indeed, we were not prepared. And when we say not prepared, we're looking at both the employers themselves and both the business community and the workforce itself. Because if you look at from the business side, you've got to avail your staff with your technology. You've got to avail them with the data itself for them to be able to operate, for those that operate online, and for the staff themselves, you've got to train them on the use of the technologies themselves, and connectivity in the different areas that we stay. Now that's policymaker sort of element where we are saying that do we find connectivity in all parts of our economy? For example, John, you might be farming in Gwanda. Are you able, when you say working from home, we're not necessarily talking about working from your domestic sort of setup. You could actually go to your farm, but is the network available at your farm? And so definitely we were caught unawares, but I believe that we're resilient people. We've managed to adapt, and we are floating somewhere there in the high echelons in terms of catching up.
Yeah. In terms of discipline, as we wind up this segment, not everyone is disciplined to do a productive work on their own without the supervisor or the manager behind their back. Do you really think this culture of working at home can realize productivity so that industry does not foresee this drawback?
That's a key question, based on the fact that when we discuss the element of productivity, there's three factors. The first one, accounting data. The second one being the systems. Do we have systems that can, get us to track the hours that an employee is engaged in terms of their work? And then lastly, self-introspection, the employee themselves being able to measure themselves in terms of effectiveness. So when we look at that, there are various studies that have different facts. One says that there is low productivity when you are alone. There are also side effects of working alone, motivation, and everything.
Evans will go deeper into those three areas that you've just told us about in the second segment. That's Evans Kurangwa, who is our guest today on Economic Forum, where we are discussing the culture or the concept of working from home, which largely started during the COVID-19 pandemic. Is it productive? Is it something that companies can continue with, or even government can continue with, as we are seeing international organizations and others have come up with remote or hybrid, something like that, meaning a mixture of working at home and going to the workplace. So join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. We are in the second segment of Economic Forum, where today we are discussing the culture of working from home, which grew quite immensely during COVID-19, where many people were working from home. But even after the pandemic, that has continued, be it in the international organizations and some corporates want to see whether it is the best way. We've got Evans Kurangwa here, who is a corporate governance expert, who is helping us to understand the culture of working from home as well as the future of work. In the last segment, we were just describing productivity, and you looked at three issues: accounting data, systems, as well as self-introspection. I had asked you about being disciplined when you are working alone and so forth. So you can take it from there as to the studies that we were talking about that were carried out to measure effectiveness.
Sure. Now, 1 and 2, accounting data and availability of systems, those would be used by the employers of business in order to measure performance, in order to ensure that there is productivity. So you find that because of a lack of many of them, look, let's be honest, in most cases that employees have been working from home, we don't have a system in which we can actually track that are they how many hours of work have they committed. What we do know is that working from home does give you savings in terms of time taken to get to work, getting you focused, but it does not get us to measure the actual performance. Getting things done, yes, things are done, but it's a new culture in which we've had to create those. The third one itself is a study, I think, by Ahumadi, actually 2021. They state that there is more flexibility, there is more ownership, there is more productivity when an employee is accountable for their means of work, and they are setting their own time, they are working under their own parameters. So those are the two sort of shifts. And when you talk of discipline, I think we've mastered a discipline for the industries that do work from home.
But communication also is very important, Evans. Say something about the importance of communication in this culture or in this concept of working from home.
When you look at our history globally, we've had the Industrial Revolution. What we are experiencing, I think, for quite a bit of time is the communication revolution, where when we think that we have seen, improvements in terms of gadgets, go back when we started the mobile phone. It was a gadget that it was unbelievable. But look at, the essence, it's now a business.
We're managing without it.
You can say that again.
Yes.
But look at the further advancements that, you can now have a group, you can now have a group meeting, and almost at no cost. And so definitely technology has brought about positive change. When you look at the pros of, working from home, we can actually see many developments that have been brought about by technology. And look, it looks like there will be further improvements, and we can only look back and be amazed at what technology can do for us.
Evans, let's look at the world of people management, what used to be called personal management. Now, with all these changes, how is that discipline, or how is that topic changed? What are the new approaches that are being taken? Because obviously the personnel management of yesterday, it needs some of these inputs in order to be effective.
Definitely. When you look at, let's say, the key stakeholders in corporate governance, you have a shareholder, you have your regulatory authorities, you have the body of the management. The staff or the human capital play a key role. And I'm also happy to note that if you look at the NDS 1, the National Development Strategy, and our Vision 2030, human capital is actually up among that we have to capacitate the human capital as they will drive the economy. So we may have been slow, but we are there. I think organizations do realize that the staff play a critical role in terms of ensuring that the visions and the objectives of the organizations are actually realized. So definitely organizations are beginning to realize that. And further, it's critical that the staff, where we are going, we're going to an engaged and an empowered and a productive employee. That is the model, and the employees themselves, I think, are well, well versed in terms of that. Albeit it may be an interesting, I bring an interesting perspective. COVID-19 brought about reductions in terms of workforces as global market and supply chains declined. The first cut was human capital, jobs were lost. So what it has meant that it has meant that those that still have jobs have been able to multitask, have been able to adapt to the technology and the systems that are currently prevailing globally.
That's Evans Kurangwa, who is a corporate governance expert, who is our guest today, and he's talking about the new normal, which is working from home and also the future of work. So many things have changed, and we're looking into that and seeing what's there for the world of work in future. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the third and final segment of Economic Forum, where today we are discussing the world of work, in particular working from home, which started around COVID-19 or around the COVID-19 pandemic. It had been there in a small way, but grew to become a new normal during COVID-19. And our guest today is Evans Kurangwa, who is a corporate governance expert who has been looking into that together with colleagues and also studying the trends. And he's also told us, as you told us, Evans, that it is also changing the whole structure of people management. And so many things have to be looked into so that there is productivity. But let's go to unemployment. Working from home and unemployment. Is there any relationship there? Does it cause more unemployment, or it makes people more innovative from what you got from your studies?
We see a trend. Working from home has actually meant self-management. Self-management means that our people can be more productive because when you introspect, you can actually produce more efficiencies than when you actually work from a station. When you are at a station, you have the challenge that apart from the resources, apart from the time management, apart from also the other sort of distractions that are there, you face that challenge. So when you look at where we are, like we've said, let's go back to the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. Zimbabwe's GDP in 2021 is, I think, 26 billion. In 2020, it was 18 billion. In 2019, it was 19 billion. So in 2020, because of COVID, we went back, right? But in 2021, we have seen a 45% sort of increment. Now, when we look at the history in terms of working from home as a factor, we are saying that in 2021 we were caught unawares, we were adjusting, but for an economy, look, our resilience, where we've grown 10%, in the last year, it means that as business we have actually adapted, we have actually adjusted to the situation. So we may have lost jobs because we were caught unawares. But what we find now is that adapting has caused us to be innovative. There are other now jobs that are out there that are driving the economy, and in terms of realizing our 2030 vision, we are back on track. We were behind, we are back on track, but we need to do more, and more, we need to capacitate, we need to continuously train the human capital.
Yes. When people talk about working from home, the assumption is that everyone's home is conducive. Yet other people are even more comfortable living home and spending the day somewhere and only coming to sleep and so forth. Now, has there been a study carried out to say, when you're saying people should work from home, do they have a home, or do they have an adequate home in the first place, Evans?
Interesting the way you put it. Definitely, I think we definitely have homes, and I think based on our resources, we've managed to actually put up, using personal example, I think the first time I was building, and when I was building, I think I had a Zoom meeting, and I had to wear a suit, and my background had to be shown. I put asked the madam to get a curtain, yes, behind. That's innovation,
to cover
show you to cover the back, because obviously, and in terms of being real, it's not just about the gadget, it's not just about your appearance, it's also your background. So that's the sort of the training that we are saying that if it's for meetings and meeting etiquette. And if you've noticed, when we started, especially the Zoom meetings and the online platforms, we were too clear, showing our faces and everything. If you've noticed now, people have turned down the video link, the picture. No pictures, you save data.
Yes.
So it's now audio, which is exactly. So we've adapted, and we're getting used to
Well, I kept on hammering about this question of the home. Picture me, being a resident of Matapi hostels, and you are asking me to work at home, whereas I'm more comfortable if I'm away, maybe during the day, just to give room to family to do other things, and you're asking me to work from that home. This is the reality that I wanted you to describe.
Okay. With that reality, what we have noticed is that the definition of home, when we say work from home, is put into context, because as employees, we are going to identify a place where you can work in solitude. So it may not necessarily be your actual home, but it's a corner in which you have no distraction. It's a corner in which you can be productive. So what we've noticed is everyone has identified that. So even in Matapi, you can still get somewhere a corner that is not noisy, that has no distractions, that you can actually be productive. So you can actually work from anywhere. In terms of self-introspection, it's up to you identifying a corner in which you can actually be productive.
Hasn't this all slowed down, our movement towards, achieving the middle income economy, our vision 2030 and so forth?
I'll go back to actually NDS 1. It's and I love how government have said, and I think in the first principle, to say that we need transformation, and we need agent transformation. So it calls on all of us to adopt the same agency, to adopt the same innovation in terms of getting us to realize. So to answer your question, we might have gone back, but we went back because we're trying to adapt, to understand what's happening, and then how we can survive. Our people are resilient in terms of their survivors. We float above any challenge. So we had a challenge, but thanks to the efforts of our document and government, we have been able to circumvent that.
Well, Evans, I'd like to thank you very much. That's Evans Kurangwa, who is a corporate governance expert, who has been walking us through the concept or the culture of working from home, which has become a new normal in most circumstances, and also how it fits into us trying to reach our vision 2030, despite all the obstacles that we've been talking about. That's Economic Forum, and if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so on the numbers that are showing on your screen, or you can also engage with us on the social media platforms that are also showing on your screen. So on behalf of Evans Kurangwa and the production crew, this is John Masuku wishing you happy viewing.